Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the Routledge History of Literature in English, part 43. So let's dive in the world of literature. George Moore was associated with various kinds of writing during his long career. After a period as an art student in Paris in the 1870s and early 1880s, he wrote A Modern Love in 1883, a novel set in Bohemian artistic society. This was banned by the circulating libraries and inspired Moore to fight censorship for the rest of his career. He wrote several plays, including Martin Luther in 1879, one of the few literary works in English to feature Luther as a tragic hero. The realistic novel Easter Waters made his name in 1894 as a scandalous novelist in the new realistic mode of guessing and the French novelist Émile Zola. In the three other major novels on this theme, the seducer is of a higher class than the girl. Arthur Donnythorne is the squire who seduces Hetty Sorrel in George Eliot's Adam Bede in 1859. And Alec D'Urberville is Tess' social superior in Hardy's novel of 1891. Ruth Hilton in Elizabeth Gaskell's Ruth in 1853 is seduced and abandoned by Henry Bellingham, who is a wealthy young man of a higher class. The realism of Easter Waters lies in its depiction of poverty and in its settings, which include the world of the racing establishment, a lying in hospital and the workhouse. Moore's earlier novel, Mike Fletcher, in 1889, is of particular interest as the only real descendant novel of the time featuring a sensitive artistic hero whose sufferings and sensibility dominate the whole tale. The modern novel, as a chronicle of artistic sensibility, is importantly anticipated in this neglected work, which can find a comparison only in Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, written around 1890 to 1891 as a novel of an aesthetic life lived for its own sake. He also wrote The Untilled Field in 1903. Then he also wrote The Brook Kerith in 1916. Now comes Ebenezer Elliot, wrote ballads, and the well-known ballad is Corn Law Rhymes in 1830. Then comes Arthur Morrison, wrote the works such as Tales of Mean Streets in 1894 and A Child of the Jago in 1896. Now comes Henry Mayhew, whose works London Labour and the London Poor in 1851 and London Children in 1874 gave detailed records of real suffering and had a considerable effect on the public awareness of the need for reform. Victorian novelists do not express direct anger, perhaps because the victims of society were not educated to read and write until after the Education Act of 1870, the year in which Charles Dickens died. Thomas Wright, who, as the journeyman engineer, left us a fascinating series of documentary writings, turned to the novel with The Bane of a Life in 1870. But despite its first-hand account of working-class life, the polemical issues are toned down for a middle-class readership. John W. Overton, in his work Harry Hartley in 1859 and Saul of Mathew Court in 1879, makes his working class concerns the basis of a philosophical approach to a new society along positivist lines. W.E. Tirebuck's work Miss Grace of All Souls in 1895 has been described as the most important industrial novel to be published in England since Hard Times 40 years earlier, and it was the most successful portrayal of independent working class life since Mary Barton. Miss Grace is the continuation of a line in fiction which Disraeli began in Sybil and of which Mary Barton and Kingsley Alton Locke are perhaps the most significant examples. Two women writers of the end of the century attempted to bring this industrial or working class novel to a new readership, but their work is now little read. The first writer is Constance Howell, shows the conversation of an upper class woman to socialism in a novel of class repentance called The Excellent Way in 1888. Next writer is Margaret Harkness, using a male pen name John Law, took realism to new levels of directness with her work A City Girl in 1887 and her major novel Out of Work in 1888. George Eliot had handled similar themes in Janet's Repentance in Scenes of Clerical Life, written around 1857 to 1858, but with fictional intent balancing the anger with Harkness's writing reveals. Like so much of Victorian writing, these later flourishings of working class concern lead directly to the writings of Oscar Wilde, in this case to his essay The Soul of Man Under Socialism in 1891. If you have any doubts or query, you can ask me in the comment section below, or you can even message me in the social media IDs that are given below in the description box. Do share the video to all those who wants to be the part of this literary journey. So that's all for today's video. Thank you and signing out.